there, welcome to episode 3 of Rewind. Still working on our theme song. Rewind. I'm Alicia Malone. This is the show where we celebrate classic cinema and hopefully introduce you guys to some movies that you may not have seen, may not have gotten around to seeing yet, etc., etc. I'm joined by two fabulous bearded men over here. My co-host, John Schnepp.
Hey, what's going on? I'm beard number 1.
And beard number 2 is managing editor of Slash Film, Russ Fischer.
Number 2.
Yay.
I want to be beard number 2.
We'll switch. You can be beard number 1 and I'll be beard number 2.
Yeah,
Okay,
by the
just
end, you
swap it
might
up.
have switched.
Oh my God, we'll just tear them off.
That's
and
right.
Paste them on each other.
A mask.
Now, as for our theme this week, recently I was doing a show where I spoke a lot about David Lynch, and I realised that a lot of people haven't actually gotten into his films. Maybe they've always wanted to try them, but it seems too daunting. So I thought we could talk about David Lynch, and then we could also start to dip our toe into the murky waters of surrealism in cinema.
Sure.
And poor Russ got roped into this because I was at a party with him, and I said, you mentioned Wild at Heart, and I said, oh, you a David Lynch fan? So starting with you, why do you love David Lynch?
When I was a kid, like many other people my age, I think Star Wars was my main thing, because I saw Star Wars when it first opened and all that. And then when I was in high school, I saw Blue Velvet, and Blue Velvet was the movie that was like, oh my God, movies can do all this stuff. And it really changed my conception of what movies could be. It made me want to make movies. It made me want to be involved with movies. So like right from the beginning, when I was pretty young, David Lynch was a huge thing for me. And that was when Twin Peaks was on the air.
Yep.
And so I got in right there, and I've never left.
You've never stopped. You've been on this ride, you've never stopped.
Yeah.
Schnepp, I know you love Twin Peaks.
Yes. Well, my introduction to David Lynch was with the film Elephant Man. I saw it in the theater with my family, and I left a crying, sobbing, broken boy.
Yeah.
I realized that humanity could be so heartless and cruel, and it truly just broke me. And I had never been broken by a film before. And that movie, this isn't a spoiler, you could look it up. John Merrick's going to bed at night like a normal person crushed me. So I was like, and that's a strength that David Lynch brings with all of his films. People tend to group you in a little, hey, let's put this person, he's circular, but let's squeeze him into the square and the triangle. So, I mean, yeah, he's surreal. Yeah, he's thinks outside of the box. He likes to go and drink chocolate shakes and drink coffee and get really buzzed out and write a bunch of weird stuff down. Everyone has their own process and techniques, and his films are definitely not the norm.
Yeah.
But he's a master craftsman, and you go back to some of his earlier film work, like say The Elephant Man. Mel Brooks saw it when he was like, that guy, that guy's that Midnight guy from Eraserhead. I'm going to give him a movie.
Yeah.
And boy, did he knock it out of the park.
That's
and then
amazing.
Moving on. Obviously, I saw Dune when I was a little kid too, and I loved it. I love the whole idea that they've, Dune to me is not a failure. It's a masterpiece. It's a film. It's a film that is basically they took inner thoughts of is he the Kwisatz Haderach? People thinking inside their own brains. And I think they did it pretty successfully. No one's done it since. Maybe I'll do it. Or somebody should take that, and do it again. But he's, obviously Blue Velvet, another one that knocked it out of the park and changed cinema pretty much for everyone.
And that came out of Dune as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it's his deal with Dune led to Blue Velvet, and they had a lot of time to work on Blue Velvet. So it was refined. I saw Dune in the theater as well, and I had just read the book. And it's one of the first movies I was really disappointed by because it didn't match what I wanted out of the book as a 12-year-old or whatever I was.
The book. Yeah,
but I didn't have any conception of who David Lynch was at the time either. I was just like, oh, Dune, I just read this book. I want to see this movie.
Right, then they hand you this dictionary, do I have to read this?
And I was like, I don't need this. I read the book.
Well, the thing I love about David Lynch is that he explores kind of this dark underbelly under a seemingly perfect society. I think that's something that I was really drawn to. He's a great American filmmaker, very influential. He's kind of a visual artist. And if you want to sound fancy, then you call him an auteur director, because that means a director is the author. No other person could have made that film, because it is 100% his vision. All his movies are completely his.
He certainly is an auteur. I mean, if you can't not watch any of his films and not know that he was involved. He's very, very involved in the sound design of every single film. And of particularly certain ways of visions are seen, or like it's very particular. So,
and when it came to the Elephant Man, he was so hands-on and so craftsman-like that he tried to do the John Merrick makeup. Like he spent months trying to design the Elephant Man makeup and couldn't get it to work, and finally was like, okay, we got to bring somebody else in here to do this.
Well, let's delve into Elephant Man, because if you'd like to get into David Lynch, then Rewind recommends The Elephant Man from 1980. This is a biopic, a semi-factual account of John Merrick, as we're saying, an extremely deformed man living in 19th century London, treated like a freak by society, everyone except for a kind surgeon played by Anthony Hopkins. The brilliant John Hurt plays John Merrick, and you might remember this movie, or you may have heard of this movie, or you definitely would have heard of the quote. Can we do it?
I am not an animal. I am a human being.
I'm just going to let you guys do it. You do it better than I do.
We do great impressions, as people who've watched Rewind know. Not very good. But this film I rewatched the other day, and I thought it's a good starting point for Lynch because it's very straightforward. But this was his second movie after Eraserhead, and it has those surreal bookends to it.
Yeah.
But at its heart, it's a really touching movie, isn't it?
Oh, hugely. Yeah, it's heart-wrenching. And it's because Lynch kind of hangs back a little bit, and because John Hurt is so good as John Merrick, and he like through this makeup that's, I mean, you can see those images. The makeup is crazy. It's really heavy. It obscures his face almost entirely. It shapes his body, and he just gets into that performance in a way that I can't imagine anybody seeing him in that movie and not believing it, you know, not believing in this person to such a degree that I think it really changed people's ideas of of who the Elephant Man was, of what John Merrick looked like, what his life was like. Because of course the film took some liberties, but the movie is, I think, so convincing and has such like a gut-wrenching, really, really emotional aspect that I think you watch that movie and just completely dive into it.
Yeah, it's got such heart to it. And would you say his deformities kind of reflect what the ugliness of society? Something like that?
Oh, yeah, or just the innocence of something like that. I mean, I wouldn't say he's a reflection. I would say that, you know,
how
it's sort of
people
like,
reflect
yeah,
him.
it's how horrible the society can be to someone who is afflicted and take advantage of them in horrible ways, to never get to know that he actually knew how to read books and was an artist. No one knew that because they had him in a cage just to make money. So it was like those kinds of things. Then when he's forced to return to it, those are the crushing moments of the film, and David Lynch is able to capture it so perfectly in black and white. Once again, he started out working in black and white with Eraserhead, and then when he went on to do Elephant Man, he wanted to do it in black and white. And this was at a time period when doing black and white wasn't necessary. Right. And in fact, most producers were like, "What, are you crazy?
Should we dip it to black and white again? Do
Maybe you might want to dip
the
this entire scenario into black and white.
Just to show
just for a minute,
you.
so you could see when you go to black and white, it's actually a transformative medium. It's like nowadays everybody expects color, and I think a lot of people have this kind of weird prejudice against black and white. Like, I don't want to watch it, it's black and white. It's actually, you
old.
should enjoy it because it's in black and white, especially films that are made specifically to be in black and white, like Ed Wood or like Elephant Man. They're made specifically, they're crafted.
There's a shimmer to them. Like, there's a quality of the light that is magical in a way that is unusual, and that's one of the beautiful things about cinema and about movies, and that you can't quite get with digital photography. You know, you can't even quite get it with digital projection, but it's, I mean, you see a good digital projection of Velvet Man, and it still looks gorgeous.
Well, and it also takes you into a reality that doesn't exist because we see in color. So this is it's a way that a filmmaker can craft and shape a film for you. So you should really appreciate it. And definitely, it was great after we did our episode and talked about and showed a lot of black and white films like Double Indemnity. It was really a great thing to see that so many of you went out and watched not only Double Indemnity or The Big Sleep, but you went ahead and saw Citizen Kane. So, I mean, that's the way to do it. You know, we're not here just to, like, you know, talk and pontificate. We're here to, like, check this movie out because you should be seeing it.
And I think Elephant Man is definitely one that people will check out and they'll be like, why haven't I seen this before? And it's easy to get into. It was nominated for 8 Oscars, and it actually, the makeup, is it true that it made the Academy create a new category for hair and makeup after this movie because it was so good? John Hurt, really.
Yeah, John Hurt was incredible. Anthony Hopkins was incredible. Freddie Jones was incredible. So, I mean, all the acting.
So definitely watch The Elephant Man. And if you want to delve further into the world of Lynch, then Rewind recommends Blue Velvet from 1986. It's a mystery starring Kyle MacLachlan as Jeffrey Beaumont, who lives in a seemingly idealistic small town. But the discovery of a severed ear leads him and the daughter of a detective, played by Laura Dern, down a very dark path. They discover a beautiful lounge singer, played by Isabella Rossellini, whose son is being held by a sadistic gangster, played by Dennis Hopper. This is my favourite David Lynch film. Schnepp, what does that say about me?
The candy-colored clown they call the Sandman whispers something to the night. Something, go to sleep, everything will be all right.
See, they haven't seen the film. They don't know what you're talking
I
about.
close my eyes.
When you see it, you will
that music.
understand.
And then that weird lady gets up on top of the car, and he's like, "You don't understand what you want to do." It's like
That's
moments
a
of
great...
pure nightmare. Just, I mean,
Yes, it is.
the
It
really
blue
is.
Blue Velvet blew me away when I saw it. I the two films when I was a teenager. I sat in the theater for 15 minutes when they were cleaning up the popcorn. It was Brazil and it was Blue Velvet. Those movies shaped the way my brain, my young brain, started to bubble about, because it made me realize what film can be and what it can show you and open up your brain to certain horrors like this kind of film. Blue Velvet it is about like your normal average city or your little town, your sleepy town, which all of us, either you grew up in a big city or a small city, but every single city has this element, a darker element, a creepy area. Like your parents are like, don't go down that alley. Why? Just don't do it. And then someday when you're a little older, you walk down that alley and you discover something that you shouldn't have discovered. And that's kind of what Blue Velvet's all about. It really is about that seedy underside that exists right around the corner, and it's there everywhere. It's present. And, the character that Kyle MacLachlan plays kind of becomes that a little bit. It's a transformative movie where it's like you see like this dark underbelly just become a thing. It's like a possession almost.
It almost, it infects him a little bit. Yeah. He does some things over the course of the film that are questionable, and things that the kid you see at the opening of the movie probably never would have done. And it is a horror movie. I think horror is a huge word, because it's like, I love horror movies. I love stuff with gore. I love seeing how these movies are done, but they don't scare me. They don't freak me out. What freaks me out is the idea that I might end up in a car with someone like Dennis Hopper's character in Blue Velvet.
Frightening.
That is terrifying, because it's this guy who is unpredictable, who is just going completely by his own rules, and you don't have any way to understand what he's going to do next.
No.
And that's like those sort of people. I don't know. I think you get to a certain point in your life and you realize that's the scary stuff. Like those are the things that can maybe actually hurt you and mess you up.
Yeah.
And this movie captures that in a way that's just like, oh my God,
Yeah,
it's so
terrified me when I first saw it. I didn't understand. I was pretty young. I kind of snuck it into my pile of VHS tapes, and it's got some bizarre and some strong sexual content in there. So I think I was a little shell shocked after I first saw it, but now I really love it. And I agree with you, because I grew up in Canberra, which is the capital of Australia. It's beautiful. It's very well planned. But I just always had a feeling that there might be something dark underneath. So I think that's why I related to this film. And I also love the fact, we were talking about film noir last week. This is a neo-noir, which Lynch does a lot of. And it has a 50s feel, but then set in the modern time period. It's a mystery, almost like a detective mystery, but
In fact, that's
really
all that's
warped.
playing on the television is like you see shots of a gun or someone creepily walking up the stairs in black and white, and they're all watching these weird murder mysteries at home. They're like eating like, yeah, I'll see you later,
Yeah, there's so much to notice about this film. I think like most of David Lynch's movies, when I rewatch Blue Velvet, I see something different every time. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And Lynch based some of his movies on films noir as well. I mean, there's a movie called Laura that is a huge influence on Twin Peaks, and that's just like a pretty simple, on the surface, pretty simple, like missing woman story where this guy gets sort of roped into it and then things happen. But it's like Lynch drew on a bunch of that stuff, these like 40s black and white mysteries with all this atmosphere. So he's a good gateway into some of that older stuff too. If you see Elephant Man, you see Blue Velvet, and you're like, oh, these movies are kind of cool, then that can be a way to get into something like Laura or like Sunset Boulevard or those films that he was pulling in.
Yeah, I think another good thing to say about David Lynch's films in general, they put you into a world, and you need to have the patience to enjoy it.
Yeah.
A lot of his films aren't fast-paced. There's no like crazy action scenes. It's like, if there are, it's like abbreviated and abrupt. Like in Wild at Heart, all of a sudden death metal starts playing, and Nicolas Cage is smashing someone's brains into like exploding on the sidewalk, and then it's over. So it's like that's the kind of thing that you're going to expect from
That's
David
like
Lynch
the
film.
opening of that movie.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
literally.
That's the beginning of that movie.
His films are very exciting, but in a way that it just like you get into his world. Like, so if you get a chance to see Wild at Heart, Blue
Mulholland
Velvet,
Drive.
Mulholland Drive. Let's talk
I
about
love,
that.
Mulholland Drive. I am appreciating that film more and more. I was just talking to Russ off camera about the fact that now that I live in LA, I see it in a completely different way, because it's like David Lynch's warped version of Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard, all about broken Hollywood
Very
dreams.
much so, yeah.
And the thing that I also love about David Lynch is that it's open to interpretation. He never explains his films. He's never like, this is exactly what I was meaning.
You don't find
It's
him doing
up to
director's
you.
commentary on things, telling you, this is what this scene's about.
Exactly. It's up to you to take something from it. So, Mulholland Drive is one of my
Lost
favorites.
Highway.
Lost Highway.
Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive is a really good double feature, because it really is about a character transforming into another character.
Yeah, broken identities.
Or a character actually maybe not ever having been that character at all.
Yeah.
So it's certain things like
Yeah.
that where, and here's something that's a common mistake that people think, well, he just made up, he didn't know what it meant. He has like a clockwork mentality and a screenplay, and all of the things mean something to him.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to have to explain it to you, which I respect. I'm like, look, I'm a big boy, I can figure this out myself. And even if I come away from it with my own interpretations, that's even better,
That's
because
valid.
it's multi-leveled, it's multifaceted.
And he works very intuitively as well. It's like some people will sit down and be like, well, this person did this thing because all of these things have happened in their life beforehand. And he doesn't really do that. He kind of, if you listen to him talk, he literally talks about catching ideas out of the air. He's all about kind of seeing what comes to him and then pulling it together, but that doesn't mean it's arbitrary. He's super into meditation, and he's actually got a book called Catching the Big Fish that if you want to get like really deep into it, this book is kind of cool because it's really short. There's an audiobook version that he reads, and his voice is very soothing, and it's kind of nice. But you read or listen to that book, and it's like, oh, it's kind of like a Rosetta Stone for his movies. It sort of breaks the code, and it's like, oh, this is what you're doing with like some of these sequences and some of these ideas, and this is where these things come to you. It's not necessarily going to explain them any better, but it helps understand like, oh, this is what your thought process is while he's doing that.
I read it, and it didn't necessarily make me want to get into meditation, but I did. It's an enjoyable read.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to mention is a film that's always not brought up. It's called The Straight Story. And that's a film that he didn't write. One of his partners, the producing partner, wrote it, but it's a beautiful story, and it really is another aspect of David Lynch that like is available to see in certain scenes from Twin Peaks, the television show, but never really expanded too much in his movie world, except for in The Straight Story, which it's just a real simple story about a brother getting in a tractor to go and visit his other brother. And that's the entire film.
It's beautiful. It's
and
a great movie.
Beautiful, beautiful film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they call him the modern master of surrealist cinema. He's definitely had a huge influence, and there are some other directors who work in a similar way. Who are some modern directors you would recommend if people want to watch surrealist cinema? Aronofsky?
I would say Aronofsky for sure. I mean, that was one of the greatest parts of Noah, were those weird rock angels and like, Noah was off the rails weird. I mean, if you haven't seen Noah, look, just see it, because it's not, throw away all the religious aspects. It's just a crazy trip. It's a weird, strange movie. It's a bizarre story, and it's a lot of fun.
It feels like a weird 70s sci-fi comic book story.
Totally.
We were mentioning heavy metal earlier, and it's like, oh, that's,
a chapter
it's a
from
chapter
a really
in the
long
movie.
heavy metal book.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Nicholas Refn Winding.
Winding
Nicholas
Refn.
Winding Refn.
Yes, I always say his name wrong. Sorry.
With Drive. That feels like a
Well, Drive,
nightmarish-
Valhalla Rising, his
Only
entire
God
Pusher
Forgives.
trilogy.
The Pusher movies are
Yeah,
incredible.
the Pusher movies,
Yes.
it's not that they're surrealist, but they have this hyper reality edge to them. So.
And if you watch Hannibal, Mads Mikkelsen, who is Hannibal on that show, a couple of his earlier movies are the first two Pusher movies, and he's amazing in the second one. The second movie is all him, and he's so good in it.
Fantastic.
It's really terrific. Yeah,
and Cronenberg, we're going to be talking more about David Cronenberg later on.
If you
Michel
want to get Gondry, if you want to get really weird, you've got oh, now I can't remember his name. The guy who did Rubber and Wrong.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That's that falls into the Tim and Eric kind of style
Quentin
of
Dupieux,
filmmaking.
you know. But he's very, again, like this very intuitive stuff going on, you know.
You bring it up Terry Gilliam, like a lot of his films,
you know.
Time Bandits, breaking that glass and revealing a whole other world behind it.
Lars von Trier.
Lars von Trier. Ryan Gosling just did his first movie, Lost River, which is very influenced by Drive and Only God Forgives that he did with Nick Refn. And I just saw Lost River at South by Southwest, and I loved it.
It's
like a weird nightmare.
Right on. I saw the trailer and I was like, wow, I want to see this. A lot of people were cracking on it, saying that he's just ripping off, Drive. And this, I was like, it looks pretty interesting and fun and weird and strange. I can't wait to see it.
It actually feels more like David Lynch. And the thing that I liked about it, which we spoke about on AMC Indie Spotlight, which you should all watch, is that it does feel like completely his work, much like David Lynch. So we've thrown out lots of names there.
Jodorowsky, too. Don't forget about that.
Oh, Jodorowsky. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
Dance of
Holy
Reality
Mountain,
is great.
yeah.
Even his
lots of names there. You can tweet us anytime if you want more suggestions.
Yeah.
But if you want to start with David Lynch, then we recommend The Elephant Man and Blue Velvet. Let us know when you watch these movies. I love hearing when people actually go out and watch it and their thoughts on it, because it's like my film club from school come to life.
That's right.
Finally, people are listening to me. All right. Well, let's go to Rewind Remembers. Now, this has nothing to do with our theme. Its only purpose is to make you feel old and make you go, oh my gosh, that was that long ago, and to celebrate some anniversaries. So, 20 years ago this week, Tommy Boy came out. The comedy classic starring Chris Farley, David Spade. Farley plays a not-so-bright guy who inherits his father's near-bankrupt business along with his father's assistant and goes on a road trip to get more clients. And also Jefferson in Paris. It's a historical drama starring Nick Nolte, Gwyneth Paltrow and Greta Scacchi. Nolte plays Thomas Jefferson during the 5 years he was a US ambassador to France before the French Revolution. Gwyneth plays his daughter Patsy, and Greta is Maria Cosway, the married woman Jefferson falls in love with. I'm going to admit something embarrassing here. I've seen a lot of movies. I've never seen Tommy Boy.
I've never seen Jefferson in Paris. I didn't even know it existed.
I haven't seen either of these, but Tommy Boy, I feel ashamed that I haven't seen
Tommy
it.
Boy
I don't know about a shame.
I saw it on cable, and I was like, wow, this is really funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I wasn't into him when they were coming out, and then many years later, I finally saw him, and I saw multiple. I think I saw Tommy Boy like 8 times over the span of like 4 years. I remember seeing, I was like, oh, there's that scene. Like you're flipping channels. Oh, Tommy Boy's on. You watch it for like 10 minutes and then turn it off.
I was more like that with Happy Gilmore or something like that. But in the SNL cast related movies, Tommy Boy. It's you see that poster and it's like, oh, okay, I know what that movie is.
Exactly
That's
what that movie is.
And it's fun and it's stupid and it's great. Like,
I just feel like a lot of people quote it, and I'm always like, where's that from? Tommy Boy. Oh, I still have to see it.
So the lovable Chris Farley, like, oh man, I can't believe I did that, all stupid and and Spade just extra hateful, like just sour bitterness.
So David Spade,
David Spade, off of everything. He's just, he's like, their pairings in certain films are great, but this is the best one, Tommy Boy.
All right, I will check it out. Also, we thought this week we will chuck in 30th anniversaries too.
What? To get even older?
Yeah, make me feel really young.
And this does make me feel really old. Rewind remembers that 30 years ago this week, the Care Bears movie came out. I watched this when I was young.
Satanic.
It's the animated movie starring Mickey Rooney as an orphanage manager who's telling a story. Yeah, boys. Telling a story about the Care Bears. And in that story, the Care Bears have to use their care powers to stop an evil spirit from removing all the happiness in the world. Desperately seeking Susan, that does look 30 years old now. This was Madonna's first major role in a movie. Rosanna Arquette starred as well. Roberta, she plays, and she goes to one of the meeting spots from this ads that Susan, Madonna's character, is putting out there, and she loses her memory. And then Police Academy 2, their first assignment. This is the sequel, of course, in the very popular comedy franchise, The Graduates, assigned to a precinct being harassed by a gang. 7 movies in that franchise, but this was the second most popular after the first.
Strangely enough, I watched Caddyshack last night for research for this some other thing, and after it was over, like Xbox was like, hey, if you like this, you'll love these other films, and there was like all the Police Academy films. So I watched the trailers for all 7 of the last night. I didn't even know that this was part of our show today, but boy, I'll tell you.
So how'd number 2 look? Did it look great?
Oh boy. I can only say if you only see one Police Academy, see the first one.
Yeah, pretty much.
They get successively worse. You know?
Yeah, and their box office got worse and worse as they went along. But 7 movies, it's like the Furious 7 franchise now.
It's something like that. And, you know, back at that time, they needed, you know, cable TV stations were new, and Showtime and Cinemax needed something to fill out those late hours when they weren't going to be showing, like, weird, sexy stuff.
Shannon Tweed is busy. Throw in a Police Academy.
Yeah, throw in a movie with Hightower. But hey, Desperately Seeking Susan is kind of a good movie and like a really neat artifact of the time.
Yeah,
and
it very much looks like the time, the fashion, Madonna.
I mean, it captures Madonna when she was impossibly gigantic and popular.
Right.
Like the only thing that is, you know, maybe crazier than Madonna's popularity at the time was Michael Jackson's popularity at the time. But Madonna kind of came up and was this thing that she was just on fire, and this movie kind of captures her right at that moment.
Right. They had a Vision Quest movie with Matthew Modine that came out like 1 year before this. And that's right when she was getting super popular. So this movie was like, just dress everybody up like Madonna. You know?
Yeah, Madonna
It's her Purple
explosion.
Rain.
Madonna explosion everywhere. And I remember watching Care Bears movie when I was young, and I had a bunch of Care Bears. And I'm dating myself now. So
luckily, I was old enough to not care.
I was going to say, I have a big revelation to make. I've never seen the Care Bears movie.
No. I thought you were giving me the Care Bear stare. I thought that's what was happening.
Is there a Care Bears stare?
There is, yeah. It's full of love.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, that sounds just kind of creepy, the Care Bears
creepy.
stare. Yeah.
So, yeah, Rewind remembers happy birthday to these movies.
Yeah, weirdos.
Hey! Now let's head back to the world of David Lynch and surrealist cinema with Rewind Reveals, where we talk about a hidden gem inspired by the theme that we're talking about. So if you'd like to delve more into surrealism, something that feels very David Lynch, then you should watch Videodrome from 1983, the sci-fi body horror film written and directed by David Cronenberg. Warning, this is a very disturbing movie starring James Woods as a cable TV station CEO who goes looking for new sleazy TV shows, sees a horrific torture show through a mysterious signal, a pirate broadcast of a show called Videodrome. Then he starts to have hallucinations as the show invades his life. Also stars Debbie Harry, one of her first film roles. This came after Scanners. And the funny thing is, it still holds up, and the message about mass media and having a little empathy for sex and violence that you see on screen, it definitely still holds up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, it's a super weird movie. It's about, you know, it's kind of neat because it erases any line between reality and hallucination. When James Woods' character starts hallucinating, the movie never says, hey, this is a hallucination, it's gonna get weird. It just gets really weird, and he doesn't know what's happening, so we don't know what's happening. We kind of do, but it just dives in head first and is like, you're just gonna come with us, this is gonna be strange, and just deal with it. And it's kind of super rad. And we don't like to talk about the idea that, like, hey, maybe this stuff that we watch does affect us, and this movie is all about that idea. This movie is all about, like, maybe there's a little like play back and forth between us and the stuff that we constantly take in, and that makes this movie a little uncomfortable too, because I think it, you know, hopefully forces viewers to be like, wait, is this now? Am I gonna want to do weird stuff with my TV after I watch this movie?
This is one of my all-time favorite movies ever.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I think that this movie has so many different levels to it. It's even the cathode ray mission, just the idea that a video signal can leave something behind in your brain. And then the idea that these people, certain people who are like in charge of governments and things are using it to get rid of a certain type of person who would watch this. And it's like, well, you know, it's sort of, it becomes a war between like, well, Dr. Oblivion and this other radical like eyewear collective. And you never know what is happening. That's the beauty of this film, is as once James Woods is infected by the signal of the Videodrome, the reality goes back and forth till you actually never really know if you're watching a scene that's real or not. And it's done in such a great way. I mean, certain films, I'd have to say, especially in the 70s and 80s, never over-explain things to the audience, to the film-going audience, which I feel like, you know, once we kind of got into the 90s, things got a little too simple. Storylines got simplified, and kind of a generic kind of over-gloss kind of happened to big Hollywood films because they just wanted it to become a global thing. So they were like, well, you have to smooth this off, and you can't have this, and you can't have that. And I don't think a lot of people are too worried about that, especially in the 70s and 80s, because probably it wasn't a global cinema, so you could take more chances, yada, yada, yada. Films were bigger, you know, this and that. So, you know, I just think it's like when you watch films like this from the 80s, and particularly 70s and 80s, you'll see this kind of filmmaking and story and script and this kind of like, whoa, I can't believe they're doing this. And they're taking these chances, and it's exhilarating and exciting. So it's like when you jump into a horror film like this, it's not just a horror film. It's like it's got an entire agenda.
It's well,
fantastic film.
I got two things that I'd like to throw into that. One is that, you know, Cronenberg started making features in the mid-70s, and he got a lot of flack at the time because his movies were really out there as far as violence went and as far as sex went. And he was criticized all over the place for some of this stuff, like Roger Ebert in his review of Rabid, which was an earlier Cronenberg movie, was like, do people actually want to watch movies like this? You know? And so you get this movie, which is about a guy who is goes looking for sex and violence on screen and finds it, and things happen. So there's this really interesting interplay in this movie between the criticism that Cronenberg was getting as a filmmaker and what his audience wanted and was responding to. And so this movie is that, like, all wrapped up.
Yeah.
And then you also got to think about the fact that this movie was financed through Canadian tax shelters. So up to a certain point, this was the last movie that Cronenberg did that was a tax shelter movie. But basically, people could say, we want to shelter a bunch of our money. We're going to put it into this film.
Wow.
And so, like, this money would come literally at the end of the year. People would be like, okay, producers would basically say, hey, what script do you have? What do you have ready to go? We suddenly have $10 million. You got to shoot it, like, within 6 weeks. Right. And Scanners was one of those movies. Videodrome is one of those movies. And so, like, with this movie, you get Cronenberg kind of being like, I got this thing. I think it's ready to go. Let's do it. And kind of like
they have a very limited amount of time to get it done.
Yeah, and so that contributes, I think, to, you know, some of what you're talking about. He's not overthinking it. Like, again, kind of with Lynch, he's proceeding kind of intuitively. He's being like, hey, like, I'm just going to follow my weird, twisted dream with this, you know, and I'm going to go and, like, you know, now you have time where you kind of go back and it's like, oh, maybe I haven't explained that enough, or maybe it's too weird or whatever. These ones, they were just like,
I
let's
love
go out.
that.
I think another thing with Cronenberg is, like, I'd like to think of Existence, which is a film that he did a little bit later, as like kind of a brother or sister relation to Videodrome.
Yeah.
It carries through the body mechanics and body horror, and also some of the synthetic kind of like life versions that people are like attached now to their controllers. But back then it was just kind of starting. So
Existence came out in 1999. It's a movie about video games. It's a movie about a video game designer who is being targeted for her work, which is
by radicals.
Actually kind of weirdly appropriate to the way like conversations have gone about video games now.
Yeah.
You watch Existence now and it's like, oh my God, this movie is really kind of strangely prophetic. You know?
That's how I felt when I rewatched Videodrome over the weekend, because it had been a while since I'd seen it, and it's like it still holds up.
Yeah.
It feels like a mirror. The audience is watching this stuff, which gets quite gory. It gets quite violent. There's some kind of torture, sex scenes in there too.
It's weird.
And then, but you're drawn to it, and so it makes you think about what you like to watch.
Yeah.
I like a disturbing movie. I like a dark movie.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about that. And it's just so clever. It's so simple. And we have to give a shout out to Rick Baker.
Yes.
Who
his
did
effects
all
are
the
incredible.
effects.
Yeah. This is like, if you like movies like The Thing by John Carpenter, which I hope you like because it's awesome. You know, pre-digital effects and this stuff in Videodrome is totally bonkers. It's great. They do some super, super weird, like, practical stuff.
Yeah, it's all the TV coming alive with a living, you know, mechanical gun coming out of it. All of it's all done in reality. They had to build these things, but it's not like you're watching and you're like, that looks fake. It's actually like you get sucked into this kind of bizarre world. You know?
Yeah. So people out there, give it a go. Give Videodrome a go and let us know what you think. So, Schnepp, that brings us to the end of another episode of
Rewind.
Where can the good people out there find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at John Schnepp and at TDOSLWH. And that reminds me, my film, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, comes at you May 1st everywhere. So check it out.
Awesome. And Russ Fischer, our very first guest on AMC Rewind.
Yeah.
So great to have
Beard
you here.
number 1 now.
Beard number 1. That's right. You graduated.
I did. I just took the top chair.
Where can people find you?
I am at slashfilm.com every day because I'm the managing editor there. And I'm also on Twitter as Russ Fischer, RUSSFISCHER, all one word.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Alicia Malone. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and comment below what you like to see. We're still working on the format, but we're having a great time doing it. I love this show. It gives me a chance to talk about these weird movies that no one usually wants to hear about. So it's awesome. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hey everyone, if you liked this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.